Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our live webcast on taking balanced decisions in time. I hope by now everyone has found his way back from lunch and into our session. Where you can see me, you will later on see the slides and our system demonstration. You can maximize that window if you want. You can also download the slides by yourself in the webcast. And there's a Q&A window where we would kindly ask you, if you have a question, just post it and we will address it at the end of our session. Taking balanced decisions in time. This is our topic today. And what we mean by that is that for a company, they always have kind of a similar goal. They have to offer their services and they have to offer their products to a market demand while keeping in mind to reach their financial goals. Now, this is already hard during a normal year, but with implications or situations such as COVID-19 or the Brexit a year before or a trade war between China, these are obstacles you need to be able to adapt to. So if the toilet paper surge goes on or if everyone needs disinfect, you need to be able to react with the right supply and to keep the financials in your eye. So today it is my pleasure to introduce my colleagues from Westernacher Consulting, Amos and Russ. And I would like to introduce them and ask you, what is your point of view for balanced decisions in time?
Yeah, thank you very much, Jakob, that we can be here today in Vienna. Really excited to talk about this topic. So actually, when I started at Westernacher more or less 6 months ago, right, I started to find new ways how we can explain actually what is the value of integrating a supply, an S&OP actually, with financial planning. Because in S&OP we have so many other dimensions we have to actually take into consideration when we are looking in our supply chain, when we are balancing the market with this own supply. And therefore, why not to take this opportunity today in order to raise the awareness that we have actually a great framework in place that we can combine with the technology of SAP in order to bring the S&OP together with financial planning.
Okay, cool. And Russ, what is your role or your point of view on this topic?
Well, you got me here today to speak with the voice of the financial planning team. So, unlike Amos's supply side approach, we're also dealing with simulations, but ours are financial ones. And very often when we're trying to price in a particular decision, we're struggling to work out how we're going to model financially what something means for a company. For us, that could be days, weeks, months worth of intense work to try to get plausible figures that we're not just plucked out of the air. And so from my point of view, using these tools together and taking two approaches will solve our biggest problem, getting a simulation of the company that gives us the costs and revenues we need.
All right. So this is our topic, the strategic value of S&OP and financial planning together to take a balanced decision. And now, Amos, I would like you to introduce the framework.
Great. So, dear audience, thank you very much. And let's start, first of all, with some slides in order to bring you a bit into our let's say, concept that we developed for you, where we try here to raise the awareness and a better understanding what a balanced decision in time is from our point of view. So let's start maybe, first of all, with a statement. I just was the last 2 days in many different meetings with customers, especially in Switzerland, where we talked about what keeps them awake, right? And when we come down, when we summarize everything, they are just, as Russ already told us, they are trying to figure out how, first of all, how they can beat the market, how to align supply with. But on the other side, one of our clients just told me, hey, when we have a forecast, we see there's a tremendous increase. How can we then plan to invest into further machines? And we then started actually to summarize this kind of behavior into one sentence. So what today clients want to achieve with us is actually to do balanced decisions in time, right? At a certain point in time, you need to start to take a good decision. And therefore, we'll quickly explore today what the strategic role of an integrated sales and operations and financial planning approach is based on a technology, SAP IBP and SAC. So let's first of all start with our example that we have here shaped for you. So we have here in our example in the three stakeholders. First of all, we have a Mr. C-level, we have a Mr. Sales and Operations Planner, and we have a Mrs. Finance. These three persons are actually a really powerful team. And actually, what hasn't changed so far in the last decades is they still need to take care that their company is doing well tomorrow, in 3 weeks, in 3 months, in 18 months, but also in 15 years, hopefully, right? And they still lead the company actually based on this formula. Profit equals revenue minus cost. That is actually an integrated relation. But today we know from our customers that they cannot lead actually this formula integrated over their entire company. And this we will look at how we can actually take on it by really looking at this equation from an integrated point of view by combining IBP with SAC. Let's go quickly drill down into this equation just to get a bit sure what stands actually behind this equation, right? On one side we have revenue with many depending variables. So independent variables. So behind revenue, of course, we have a market network with customers to which we offer a product at a certain price in order to shape and generate demand that we then bring back in our supply network, where we have many different cost structures, such as direct, indirect cost structures. We have bill of materials over which we then create with our resources and the necessary material the product, the final product that we then ship back actually to our revenue, to our market, to our customer. And this actually, this relationship that you can see, these three, Mr. S&OP, Mr. C-level, and Mr. Finance have to take care. They have to balance both sides. And if we take for example, a decision-taking rhythm of one fiscal year, they have 12 times a year they are coming together in order to balance the revenue side with the cost. How they continue to approach the market, how they continue to lead the company. And the better they do, the better they balance, the better the profit will be at a certain point in time, right? And in between, we have other events that come up, such as, for example, Corona, right? That is a further variable, maybe disrupting the revenue side or the cost side. So this means that behind this formula, we have actually a network, a real supply chain set, and actually rolling activities. And now let's quickly deep dive how we can help these three stakeholders here to facilitate this daily work. So, balanced decision in time. This is the statement of our webinar. So what is our point of view on that? So before we can start to execute balanced decisions in time, we just first of all need to make sure that we set an end-to-end digital supply chain. Here we tried to draw a concept to highlight you a bit the thought of an integrated business planning approach, meaning we are able today to outline as a fundament the end-to-end supply chain, to bring in other dimensions such as products, bring in the time horizons on which we can look at this supply chain, but also bring in the dimensions of the different business hierarchies, right? And nevertheless, we need to make sure that all the different departments along this supply chain have the same view on this, as I call it, digital chessboard, because then you start actually to have one digital chessboard of your value chain, and you can start to see, understand, and act on it, right? This needs to be set. When we have this, then Mrs. C-level, Mrs. Finance, and Mrs. S&OP can really start to work on this chessboard. Let's go quickly into the word in time in our statement, balance decisions in time. In time means that our supply chain has reaction times, right? Whatever happens on our supply chain, we need maybe to react to it, right? But not every reaction can just be triggered tomorrow. So whatever we are going to decide to do for the upcoming time horizons, such as, for example, short-term, mid-term, or long-term, we need to make sure that certain decisions are done at a certain point in time in order we can react. And with a proper set planning framework, we can at least here help as well Mrs. Finance, Mr. S&OP, and Mrs. C-level to get the right framework that they understand by when they can act to actually counter certain events in the supply chain. So what happens actually if you have a correct setup S&OP view, for example, in the tool IBP? You have actually, when we talk about the supply chain, these three stakeholders have to cope with two situations. To stay simple, we have two situations. Either we have more demand than capacity available as situation in our network, or we have less demand than capacity available. So let's take the first situation, right? If you have a proper S&OP in place, for example, an IBP, then you are able to execute this matrix, right? For example, let's take the situation where we have more demand than capacity. Now the three stakeholders could start to simulate and evaluate what they want to do to increase the capacity, because they want to make use of this having more demand than capacity, right? Then they would directly see in this matrix how long it would take them to implement this action and how much revenue they can catch on top with this action. But they would also see what is the on-top direct cost impact. So this is, from my point of view, a huge benefit for these three actually to lead on a daily basis through this, let's say, complex times, right? If you would have this. And now let's extend this, right? If they come together, right, and make decisions, on one side, they have this S&OP view. But whatever action they want to leverage within their supply chain network will also impact directly the finance side, right? Let's, for example, take here a combination of applying overtime with building stock ahead. Both of these actions will also impact further cost structures. And today we are able actually to combine the finance view that can be implemented on SAC with this S&OP decision matrix. We will then directly be able to simulate what would it mean to build stock ahead as an impact on my P&L, balance sheet, and cash flow. And then it gets really interesting that you see all aspects of this certain decision profile, right?
So maybe a quick question here, Amos. How do you see this with your customers at the moment? Are they able to do this? Are they interested in this? Can you maybe give us an example of what you have witnessed over the last half year in your discussions?
So just to give you an example, I met on Tuesday, I met a customer in Switzerland actually that described to me that when they are coming together, C-level, S&OP managers or demand planners and also the controlling guys, they are discussing many different situations that is currently occurring, right? And what is quite interesting is they are seeing different scenarios or try to evaluate different scenarios. And they saw, for example, now in the time of COVID-19, that for certain of their products, they have a huge demand. So they need, of course, they asked themselves how can they, let's say, build more capacity up. But they failed actually to assess what is actually, they failed to actually have the right tools in place to assess quickly if we need further CapEx invest, how will this impact the whole decision. So they had to assume, listen on their gut, if it will be a great, let's say, approach to invest into more machines right now or not. And he said, now I really want to invest more and more into such an approach that we can directly start to simulate, hey, we have more demand. We have seen in IBP that the capacity will be not enough for the next 12 to 18 months. We need to make an invest into further machines. And this could then directly be, let's say, assessed in combination in SAC to then come to a final view and agreement between all parties.
Okay, cool. Now we've already talked about those two views and how they can interplay. But how this actually works, Russ, would you enlighten us?
Well, it falls to me to give you a quick introduction to the two technologies we're going to be talking about. So, on the one hand, we've got IBP, and on the other, we've got SAC. So let me begin by looking at what is so important about SAP's new Analytics Cloud. Now, you've probably been doing planning and analytics with SAP before. This, however, is the latest and greatest. It's a fully cloud-based solution. It's built using SAP's in-memory HANA technology. That means we're talking about built-in machine learning. We're talking about simulations in real time. Best of all, though, it is designed from the outset for financial planning. We have a very intuitive, clean, modern design behind it. It's very visual. It's guided. This is for the business user, not for the IT department. So when we are introducing a new customer to how to best approach financial planning, this is what we're going to be taking out and tempting them with. So, how does it solve the finance team's everyday working demands? Well, for a start, it assumes that we're going to be working with a financial account view of a company. It's designed with having your profit and loss statement, with your balance sheet, with your cash flow rolled up the way you need to work with it. It knows we're going to be using non-financial key figures, the headcount that we need for overhead absorption. Speaking of which, we have an actual built-in dedicated allocations functionality. We have built-in consolidation. We have a built-in versioning system which prompts the users as they're going to generate their own local simulations. So, with this kind of platform, it makes it very simple to get a clean spreadsheet view which looks the way we'd actually be working in real life. Of course, if you need Excel, it has an Excel plugin. If you work with multiple currencies and exchange rates, not to worry, we can extract those from BPC or from your ERP. If you work in more than one language, it's multilingual. And best of all, the graphics are incredible. As for machine learning, it's also intuitive for a user to just do a simple right-click somewhere and have smart insights tell them, what's interesting here? What should I be looking at? If I want to run a quick simulation of my sales revenue for the next 2 years, I run Smart Predict. It shows me any periodicity that there might be. It shows me what factors are really influencing my past sales. As I said, this is now the financial side of things. On the other side of the fence, we have IBP, Integrated Business Planning. In particular, It sells an operations planning model. Like SAC, it's a fully cloud-based solution. It uses HANA in-memory technology. It's got the same kinds of deep machine learning capabilities when it comes to running simulations and forecasts. But we're talking now about a tool for the supply chain team. And so the natural home, the natural visualization here is going to be the supply network. Now, to me, that is always an incredible strength to see how everything is interconnected, from our transport lanes to our production lines to our warehouses to the machines themselves we need to run. This will simulate the complete supply chain that's in place. So for me as a financial planner, it's a model of the company as it works. We can use it to model demand, to anticipate future revenue, and run its optimization functions and balancing to see how we're best going to meet that demand from the production facilities we have, from the stocks we have, and how to level and adjust and see how the impacts of one decision will cascade through the network. So again, if you're a supply chain planner, this has the processes in place, and this has the visualization that you would be using to do your work. But bringing them together, we've got a completely different ballgame. With a company, it's really one coin. These are just simply two separate sides. As Amos might say, it's one equation, it's two things we're working with. Whenever I'm talking about costs in financial planning, those costs could be material costs, they could be labor costs. How do I get them? These are things which I get immediately from my supply chain plan. This is the view. What do I need to produce what, in what quantity, and how many hours of labor and machine time would I require? Equally, I would like to know my projected revenue for next year. We have an entire demand planning module in S&OP which will give me those figures. So their consensus demand is my planned revenue. When it comes to things like allocations, how am I going to be breaking down or modeling my overhead? How am I going to assign it to my different cost centers? Just imagine, I've actually got the machine hours here and the labor hours. I can do activity-based costing right out of the box. So, from our point of view, there are tremendous avenues for integration. They've often got, from a finance side, the data we need, the information we need to fill in the missing gaps for us, and vice versa. What we consider everyday controlling is exactly what IBP needs to fully optimize their supply chain answers. But you need to see this live now. You need to find out, what does this really mean in a real life scenario? So let me hand over to the colleagues. Take it away.
All right. So we introduced the concept and the storyline, why we think it is important and how these two solutions work together. So what do you do where? Before we dive into the systems, I'd like to remind you that should you have any questions, you have the Q&A bubble in the tool, and you can post a question in there. We will see it and we will answer it in the end of the session. But now to get started in the system itself. What are we going to see? What we just heard in action. So we're going to look and analyze our financials in a dashboard in SAP Analytics Cloud, where we're going to see this account-based model. We're going to look at a P&L. Furthermore, we're going to see how we're doing in terms of our goals. Are we reaching our margins? We will look at some customer feedback to find out, are our customers happy? And we will consider, where could we actually expand? So we will try to come up with variants for actions to reach our financial goals. how we can actually implement this. So what are our options? What we heard before, increasing capacity, things like that. We will see this in IBP right in action. In the end, we will try to simulate the taken decisions we have to see the impact on our financial statements, so you are ready and confident with the decision you're about to make. So what do we see now? I'm right here in SAP Analytics Cloud, and I have my dashboard here for my corporate overview. In the middle, quite prominent, we see our P&L statement. So we see our cost of goods sold, our net revenue, getting down into the operating expenses. And I can drill in here, and you will see accounts that you know. So I have my gross revenue. Let's drill deeper. This consists of my revenue domestic, of my sales revenues. So I have all my accounts here that I know from my financials. What else do we see? We actually see here those versions that Russ introduced. So we see our actuals here for the last year and for the current year, and we're at the end of Q1. So when we look at the chart up here, we see the actuals for the previous year, and we see the actuals for Q1 in this year. And those other two bars, they are the versions we're trying to reach. Our growth strategy, where we want to go, and our target, which is our budget. Right now, we know that we are behind. We're looking at our operating profit in percent year to date. So this is up and running throughout the year, and we're behind 1.1 percentage points. We can also see that looking at our net revenue, we are a bit behind our target here. On the bottom right, we see our year-to-date net revenue broken up by our products. So we have 4 product lines. And we see immediately through the IBCS standard visualizations, so according to Professor Hickert, that our mountain bike product line is not reaching its target here. Now I know that something is not going as planned. I want to figure out what my options are, so let's take in a few more of external data. On the top, we can see here the market potential, and we can also see that there's a growth rate and that our market is actually growing. Furthermore, we see our predicted company market share. So how much of the market, how much of the pie can we actually get in the upcoming years? And we see the compound annual growth rate exactly for our 3 markets, the US, Asia Pacific, and Europe. And we can see that in Asia Pacific, there's the highest growth rate. So maybe we can take a bigger slice of the cake from this region. In the 4 bottom charts, we actually see what SAP calls our experience economy, where we want to bring together experience data, so what our customers out in the market are having as experiences with us, with our operational data. This is your business data coming out of your operational systems. And we can see here that our mountain bike division, as we've already seen before, is not performing as intended year over year. We also see that our customers are looking for product diversification, that this is something they're really looking for. So in the next step, I could try to figure out how can I reach these goals. On the left-hand side, we see a value driver tree where we can simulate our total sales with growth rates for our product groups. And to simply show you how this can look is, for our cruise bikes, right now we have a compound growth rate of 3.6%. Now I can simulate what if we can take actually a bigger slice of the pie here, customers are happy, and I get a 5% growth rate here in my sales. I can quickly simulate this and actually run the simulation against my other data visualizations here. And what you will see in a second is highlighted in yellow where all of these changes will end up. So our table on the right will update, and the cruise line will show new numbers for year 2020 and 2021 because the baseline changes, right? Also, we can drill down into our product group, and we see here, for instance, that we have 3 mountain bikes, and we also see that we have multiple mountain bikes, cruise bikes, because we have an e-bike here as well. Customers are looking for product diversification. Now, would I reach my goals down here if I introduce probably a new product? I can easily simulate this here and start typing and see what if I get an e-bike in here for my mountain bike division. And just as I would do in a normal Excel file, I can take my numbers from my e-bike from Cruise, copy it down here, and then the charts will update again and show me whether I would reach my goal if I would do this. Right now we see actually, yeah, we're in the green. We can reach our target. We can actually overachieve. So this could be an option for us. But to find out whether we can actually do this with our supply chain, we need to talk to our colleagues from S&OP planning. So switching over to IBP, Amos.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So first of all, what we are doing here is we are now in IBP, right? So the difference, we just highlighted it, IBP is actually our digital home of our end-to-end supply network. So we have seen, we have controlling that has done certain analysis and has seen that we could potentially introduce a new product because customers are asking for it. And we also have seen that a certain interesting fact is that APJ is an interesting market that has, a nice growth. So the idea that we could test here is, for example, why not to phase in this new product in APJ first? Because there we have a nice growth rate. Why not to introduce there a new product? So to a certain point, we have here a quite similar view, such as in SAC, but we need, of course, this input that we can start to look into our network, right? So what we have seen here is that overall we have different regions displayed. And what is now really interesting from a story point of view, just to get you here, is actually this representation from the network, right? This is the main difference between SAC and IBP. In SAC, we were in this account planning structure, and now we start to try to find out if we can phase in actually this new product in APJ. So what we see here, we have a network especially dedicated for APJ. So why not to check out if our APJ region from a manufacturing capacity point of view is able to accommodate this phase in. So what we are going actually to do here is we take the projected demand that we have for the next 3 years for our normal product portfolio and want to project, or let's say to mirror this demand with our available capacity over the next 3 years. So before we can test if we have enough capacity available in our network for the next 3 years, we first of all will quickly test how is actually the capacity looking like with the just given product portfolio. So what just happened here is we have run a so-called supply propagation, meaning we take the forecasted demand and push it through our upstream supply chain in order to see if we are able actually to cover a new phase in. And what you can actually already see here is that in APJ, looking on the next 3 years, split it in months, we are already quite booked out with the existing product portfolio, right? So this gives us a clear indication if we want to introduce a further mountain bike that is then sold actually in APJ plus also manufactured there, it will be quite tough actually to make this happen. But we have also seen that to a certain extent we have here a stable given growth rate, so we need to catch this right. And now this is the interesting part. Supply chain discover here that we don't have the capacity, but we want to make use of this growth rate. How can we actually approach that? So what we see here, we have just done is we have seen that actually in this diagram what we can see is, again, a clear indication that capacity is not enough from a network point of view, and we need actually to make an invest, right? We need to make an invest in order to increase the capacity, meaning we need to make a CapEx, meaning we need to have actually now the view from our controlling and financial colleagues. And now this is the good part of it. If you would sit in a room having these two tools on two screens, then we would quickly look at our colleagues that are sitting in SAC, in the integrated SAC with IBP, and would start actually to simulate this CapEx invest.
Exactly. So we can bring the data from our supply chain into our dashboard as well. So we do the analysis on our network in IBP to figure out, do we have the capacity? We see that actually we do not have it, especially not in APJ. And what I can do as a next step is I can bring all of this together in my dashboard here. So on the bottom right, we see our profit and loss statement again. Up here, we see some tables where you can simulate decisions, and we also see the cash flow implementations down here. And what I'm going to do now is I will simulate a fixed asset investment. So here we will simulate, and for demo purposes, it's quite obvious. It's 100 million into a new production line. And we will also try to finance this with a financial instrument with a loan. We will finance 50%. And we will run the calculation, top left here. This is running the calculation of this new asset investment into our P&L statement. So in a second, you will see highlighted in our profit and loss statement where this investment would implicate or would influence our P&L. You also see that the chart on the bottom left has updated. So in our cash flow of investing activities, we see that the bar turned upside down because we take this investment, but we can also see that over the following quarters and years, it will pay off for us. So the idea of this demo was simply to show you, we have here the SAP Analytics Cloud for our financial planning simulations, where we take our decisions, where we look at our financial performance on an account-based view. We try to figure out, can we actually expand? Can we launch a new product line? Do we have the capacity in IBP on our supply chain network where all of our plants, all of our production lines are in there? And in the end, we simulate the optimal mix that we came up with into our financial statements in SAP Analytics Cloud. Russ.
Thank you. So, as you've already seen, and as the colleagues have explained, it is very much a collaboration. Now, the example they chose wasn't anything as groundbreaking as a trade war or Brexit or COVID-19. This was an everyday example, something which people will have to do anyway, in the good times and the bad. It's a simple case, how a new product introduction, something we can discover in one tool, whether it's a demand forecast that we're seeing in IBP, whether it's analytics that we're running in SAC, it's nonetheless a collaboration between the two teams on what does this actually mean? What will I need to do to make it possible? So this is our simulation of the supply network. This is where we're asking, how can we do this? Of course, the how we can do it gives rise to the financial questions of, what's it actually going to cost us? What are the impacts? Since decisions which are going to be taken aren't just going to be on the sales revenue, they're also going to be taken on what is the impact going to be for our projected P&L. What are we going to have to put in front of the board or the shareholders in 6 months' time? What does it mean if I take a trial balance? And, quite frankly, will I need to take out a bank loan? And if so, what does that mean to my cash flow over the next 12 months? So there is tremendous scope for such interplay between the two. Now, I should also add very quickly that there are going to be outside things as well which we would take into account. And at that point, for example, if we're in Germany, something that's very important to us is that we might be expected to also provide a sustainability report with our financial figures, that we might not just be taking these decisions based purely financially, but due to their ecological impact. Can we be low carbon here? Can we recycle here? Are we being sufficiently frugal with our resources? And all of these things we can model again in both tools. But Amos, for our customers, they're probably asking us now, what are the next steps for them?
So, for those in the audience that would like to take a potential next step with us, right, that are, let's say, really interested to hear more about the topic of integrating financial planning and S&OP, you are more than welcome just to shoot us an email or a phone call in order to organize with us, first of all, an inspiration day, what we call. It's more about here to get together, either by call, by MS Teams, or even if we are allowed to visit you at your company, where we would, let's say, again, present this topic to you and your colleagues from different departments in order to here raise the awareness. In a second step, if you think, okay, this is something I would really like to tackle or at least evaluate if this would make sense in my company, but also based on the current maturity of my planners of the different teams, then let's get together for a 2 days business case workshop. We have limited it to 2 days because in 2 days we are able at least here to shape with you a vision, a strong vision, and also the reason why you should do this with the necessary buy-in. After these 2 days of business case workshop, if you would then get the approval from the company or the approval from your team to launch the initiative, we still have also the opportunity to first of all start with a proof of concept. Something lean, prototyping, extremely fast, that you get hands-on with this potential approach. Let's say here we have the ability just to go with one product family and with a dedicated data scope to test this. And then, if you're really convinced, we are more than happy here, Westernacher, together with SAP, to implement this approach at your company and take you step by step into a new game-changing approach.
Thank you, Amos. Now, we've already gotten a very interesting question from one of our customers here attending the webinar in Poland. I will read it out so everyone knows what the question was. Is, can I simulate impact on my EBITDA different version production plans and afterwards, by selecting the best one, get direct transfer to the SAP SCM APO module for short-term operating production plan? This question goes directly into what we've been discussing today. Financial implications, and take it into our production plan. Which one of you would like to start answering?
It's wonderfully difficult to choose the right person here, because this is exactly the kind of collaboration we're talking about. So, provided we've already simulated, we've worked out what we need to do, and if we know what we need to do, such as opening up a new production line or investing in a new facility, that is something we can then key into the systems to simulate. So, how do you approach that with SCM?
So right, I was not expecting the question when we have APO and SAC, but APO, right, there we can only, for now, plan in volume. It's hard to simulate, but I would say, let's give it a try, if this is possible. But I would say we need to investigate a bit deeper how an SAC APO approach could still make it, but I'm confident that we could do it. We just would need to check out the match between APO, that is not a system working with financials, but that we have the right translations back into capacity and volume in APO.
Yes, the key here is actually making this link between the euros or the zloty we're planning in and what it means, the actual production volume in terms of units. And so I could easily imagine us doing a price planning or taking in an average sales price into SAC so we can talk about the volume impacts from there. Both tools are in any case designed to integrate with all manner of systems. So SAC has got a built-in interface which is, well, it's pretty universal. IBP has got a dedicated cloud platform integration which can again talk to most things. So I would say it should be possible, but the devil will be in the detail.
What I definitely like about this question is it went a step further that we didn't actually discuss today. So today we discussed where are we at the moment, where can we go, and can we actually go there with the capacity. If we like the financial implications, of course, we would then implement this into our production plan. Now looking at some market experience again. Both solutions are developed by SAP. Both solutions are already in the market, especially looking at IBP. SAP Analytics Cloud as a BI solution has a few thousand customers already, planning more and more customers that really do their financial planning. But what would you say? I mean, we said inspiration workshop. Where do you see your customers at the moment, Amos?
Yeah, I think obviously also to the current events that are taking place, I think planning gets again more and more important, right? Because especially we have clients that obviously have a much more demand than before. Others, of course, that have less. How to cope with that, right? And it shows us actually that we get approached on a daily basis by different customers over different channels to have at least the first discussions about where they stand today and how we can really simply maybe start first of all with an S&OP on IBP, right? To set this digital end-to-end view first of all, because it's for them easier to understand their company's actions, because sometimes for certain other people, starting directly looking at their company from an account planning perspective is a bit more abstract. But IBP, let's say, is really displaying everything from the end customer to the supplier. It's easier to really set here an understanding, and in the next step, then really on top, then bring this account planning structure. Yeah, makes it then really, really powerful.
Cool. Very cool. And Russ, maybe to you with your financial expertise, planning expertise, or especially also experience over the years, how do you see it with SAC? How does it look for customers when they start working with it?
I would have to say they've been pleasantly surprised at how quick and simple it is to get going. I would say this is one of the great advantages of these new cloud solutions. We don't need a lead time of a year to get the technical infrastructure in place. We can, as a get-together directly with the business team, have a first workshop, get some licenses bought, and within just a couple of days have a simple prototype that they can immediately start looking at and working with. The speed for them is wonderful, and that the tools are actually in their hands. So, if anything, our customers are pushing to go even faster than we dare.
That's very cool news. That's very cool news. Now, are there any other questions? You can post them to the Q&A panel. If not, I know that I'm in lots of discussions with our customers looking at planning from the SAC financial side. I know from my colleagues and from my partners here from Westernacher that they are in constant conversations with their customers on this topic. You saw the options that Amos presented on how we can go further from here. So if you like what you saw, you can always feel free to reach out to us. You find our contact details in the invitation for the webinar, also in the slides. There is the offer for an inspiration workshop or to actually even develop a business case together. For now, I would really like to thank you for your attention today. I hope this webcast was interesting for you. I thank you, Amos and Russell, for joining us here today in our studio. And since there are no more questions, I'd like to wish everyone a pleasant afternoon, a few minutes ahead of our scheduled end time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All the best. Bye-bye.